Good morning, everybody, and happy Easter to all of you. Welcome to the live in-person and live Zoom worship service of the Universalist Unitarian Church of Riverside. I think there's still some people out there who haven't come in yet, but they'll get the idea and come on in. Our opening hymn this morning is number 38, Morning Has Broken, from the Gray Hymnal. Please feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you, but please only with a mask on. Please stand in body and spirit and join us in singing the hymn number 38, Morning Has Broken, those of you who are of my generation will remember the big hit Cat Stevens version, I'm sure.
Morning has broken like the first morning, blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain's dew fall, solid from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the white garden, sung in completeness when God's He has. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the moonlight, it is the play. Praise with creation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
And thank you for joining us here in person, and thank you for joining us remotely by Zoom, where we will continue this live streaming and posting these services on our YouTube channel for our virtual attendees. I'm Steve Fuji, Vice President of the Board of Trustees for another 2 months, and hopefully somebody else will come forth and take that position after that. And so anyway, I'll be your worship associate today, and other members of the worship committee that make this service possible include Alec, Peck, our music coordinator, who is also our speaker today, Adam Wedeking, who monitors our visual and online connections and other stuff, and Kate Lewicki, who is also our speaker today. No, who's in charge of our sound system. Okay, a little dyslexic here today. And Grace, who doesn't put her credit on here, but who does a lot of stuff for the worship committee. We welcome you to join us this morning with an open mind and open heart, and with muted electronic devices, please. We invite you to leave your worries and defenses at the door and trust that what happens in worship is inspiring and powerful. Together, we affirm that this day and our being together can make each of us braver, more compassionate, and wiser as we begin a new day and a new week. Although our doors are open, the pandemic is not over. So while we are here in the sanctuary, please keep your masks on while singing and take personal responsibility to keep ourselves and one another healthy and safe. Today is Easter Sunday. And Easter is considered by many to be the most important day in the Christian calendar as it celebrates the resurrection of Jesus Christ for the Christians. This is also a significant time of year for various other religious traditions, and we honor the personal meaning it may hold for each of us. In the words of theologian Dr. Josephine Lombardi, just as the seasons change throughout the year, Easter is about the seasons of our lives changing, that there is hope for our future, especially after a difficult struggle. This is something we can all reflect upon today. Before we move into the service, there are a few announcements we would like to share. We will mention several websites, email addresses, and phone numbers. At the end of the service, we will leave it up. We'll leave up a slide with all this information, and it's available on our website. Church Council this month will meet on the second Friday, but this time at 10 a.m. rather than 4 p.m. The reason being that we'll be having a rented truck at 3 p.m. on that day to move the yard sale items, which were all purchased by a group and being donated to Savers, so they have to be moved over there. We have a lot of people involved in helping out with that. But if you want to know more information, talk to Dinah Rowe. We are also accepting donations of clothing, soft goods, and other small household items through April 14th. Please bring them to the church on this Thursday or Friday. Everything will be taken to Savers on April. Well, actually, you have to bring them on Thursday because everything's being taken on Friday, the 15th. Course in Miracles group will start a new one on Friday, May 5th at 10:30 a.m. in the annex. Anyone who is interested in learning more may contact Linda Van Voorhees or Avery Burrows. The current meeting time is flexible and may be changed to accommodate other members. So talk to them if you're interested. Course in Miracles is a great thing to study. That concludes our announcements today. Now I invite you to sit back and take a slow, deep breath as we move into the worship hour. You are welcome to read with me the mission statement of our church. Our mission is to foster a diverse religious community that celebrates life, affirms the individual, encourages spiritual growth and open thought, and works to advance social justice and environmental sustainability. Our speaker today is UUCR member and chair of the worship committee, Alec Peck. Alec has been a practicing UU for 23 years. He's not much older than that, I don't think. Raised in a UU church chosen by his father, raised Quaker, and his mother, raised Jewish, though both humanist in practice. Alec has studied natural science at Creighton University, a Jesuit institution, and is now completing his PhD at UC Riverside while serving as chair of the worship committee here at UCR. And he will also be serving, we believe, as secretary of the board soon. So the sermon description today for living the life we want. Seize the day, for this moment will never come again. This age-old wisdom is hard enough to internalize, and yet we must also seize this week, this year, this life. It is every person's birthright to live with dignity in a life that fulfills them. Life on earth is a miracle, and we must work hard to realize the life we deserve. We have two lightings of the sacred flames. The first is the occupied Indigenous Peoples Remembrance Candle. The second is the lighting of our own chalice, the symbol of our faith. We walk upon the traditional territories of diverse and sovereign peoples, the original peoples of this land, who continue to cry out for justice and self-determination. The spot we occupy was first the sacred space of several groups of Indigenous peoples, including the Cahuilla, the Copeño, and the Serrano. We, the Universalist Unitarian Church of Riverside, light this sacred flame as the stewards of this sacred and holy space. We are blessed with a space and opportunities to strive to live out our common principles. We are blessed with a space and opportunity to bring justice and compassion into our daily lives, to resist all that threatens the earth and her people, and to be part of the world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Let these thoughts carry us forth as we journey and worship together. And today's reading for our chalice lighting is Cherish Your Dreams by Maureen Killeran. The poet Langston Hughes has written, "Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken-winged bird that cannot fly." May this chalice flame challenge each of us to cherish to our dreams, for all things worth doing begin with the courage and inspiration of a dream. Our flaming chalice is such a great symbol. We can get it to light. There we go. Fortunately, we have some expert chalice lighters around here. So we have a tradition at UCR to welcome those who are visitors or perhaps returning after some time away. We know it can be uncomfortable to stand up and speak in front of others, and so I will now ask for a volunteer from someone who has been here a while to tell us your name and how you found out about our church. And we ask you to step close to the mic and speak into it directly and clearly so everyone can hear. However, be aware that you will be visible on our Zoom camera and in the recording of this service, which is posted online. Do we have any church members who would like to volunteer? I see a volunteer back there. Yay. Please step forward to the mic and tell us your name, how long you've been here, and how you found out about our church.
My name is Linda Van Voris. I started here in 1995. I've lived in Riverside all my life, but neither myself or my family were churchgoers. I have seen the church, of course. I was having challenges with my teenage children at the time, looking for community and spiritual support. And I definitely found it here, since here it is 30 years later, and I'm still here. Thank you.
Thank you. 1995 doesn't seem so long ago, and yet it is. And so it's so great that you're still with us here. And so that's how it's done. If you're new here, a visitor or an old friend, please raise your hand to stand and come up to the mic in front of the pulpit. If there's someone online who would like to introduce themselves, please raise your hand using the Zoom function, and we will call on you by Zoom. Please let us know who you are, where you're from, and how you found out about us. Do we have any new people today here? Oh, do you want to come up? No pressure, but if you'd like to. And we welcome you.
Let's see. Okay, I'm Dominique. Hi, everyone at home.
Hello.
Well, I have always passed by this church, and then lately I've just been feeling, like I need to get back spiritually and to practice, and I wanted a safe place to come to where I could just worship and be myself. So I decided to come out, and the best day was on Easter, right? Where we all could start over.
Yeah.
So, hi, bye.
Well, thank you. We're glad that you're here and hope that we can provide you that safe space you're seeking. We think we can. We do have a beautiful building here, don't we? So thank you. That's okay. For any other new guests, please join us. Oh, do we have anybody on Zoom? Okay. All right. So for any other new guests, please join us for socializing and coffee hour after the service. And of course, that includes you too. We'd love to chat with you in our parish hall, where you can also find our visitors book. Please leave your name before you leave, if you haven't already done it, so that we know you were here, and leave your contact information if you want to know about upcoming events. For those online, the best way to get added to the mailing list is to email the church office at admin@uuchurchofriverside.org, which is on our website. Will be posted up here too. So our hymn now is number 1020, Woyaya, from the Teal hymnal. Please feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you, but please only with a mask on. Please stand in body or spirit as you're able, and join us in singing number 1020 from the Teal hymnal, Woyaya.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within. We are
The next portion of our service is to support our beloved historical church. This can be accomplished several ways. In addition to the weekly collection, you may send your checks to the church address, which is shown here. And you may contribute by PayPal using the QR code, which is shown here also, as well as on the church website and in the newsletter. Stater Brothers Market gives our church a rebate on Stater grocery cards, which we will have in church each Sunday. You'll get the full value, and the church also receives a percentage for free. Please see Dinah Rowe, hold your hand up, Dinah, to purchase the gift cards. And if you shop at Stater Brothers, this is a great way to help support the church, and it doesn't really cost you anything extra. Please donate as the Spirit moves you by whatever method works for you. Thank you for your generosity, and to those who give of their time and their talent, thank you for your generous care and attention. Now, will our ushers please come forward to receive the collections? Thank you. And our next hymn is number 402, From You I Receive, from the Gray Hymnal. Please feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you, but again, please only with a mask on. Please stand in body and spirit as you will, and join us in singing hymn number 402, From You I Receive.
From you I receive, you I give, together we share, from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
Our responsive reading today is by the Sanskrit poet Kalidasa. I invite you to join in reading the bold italicized words. Look to this day, for it is the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of our existence. The bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well before the day. Now let us pause for a moment of silence. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Alec Peck, speaking to us on living the life we want.
Thank you, Steve. And thank you, everyone, for being here on this Easter Sunday. I want to start with a little story. This was a little while after I first moved here, and I found myself in a tricky situation. There is a social group. This is a group of people. We play an online game together. And this is a group I was a part of, and I helped out with the administrative staff, which serviced a few hundred people in total. And I had gotten into an argument with one of the other staff members, and ultimately this incident didn't really impact anyone outside of the staff, but I was angry and disappointed in how rude this one particular person had been to me. And they were demanding that I tell them why I was so angry with them. But I didn't want to confront my friend about this until I wasn't angry anymore, until I had cooled off a little bit. But unfortunately, this became so distracting that this conflict became so distracting that it began to disrupt my work. And that was something that I found completely unacceptable. I really didn't want to face my problem and face my friend, but I didn't want to disrupt my work even more. And so ultimately, I chose to confront my friend, even though I really hadn't had a chance to forgive him yet. And in that moment, did I really want to have that conversation? Did I handle it in the way that I really thought that I should have? And did I really behave the way that I ideally wished that I would? And now, a couple years later, when I look back on that incident, do I feel that it has made me a better person and that I've learned from that incident? Once I was faced to confront that challenge, then that burden that weighed on me and distracted me so much was relieved, and I was set free. And that was truly liberating to reach that point, but I had to suffer through that first. This season, spring, is the season of rebirth. And I think the weather sure has been nice the last few days. Some people apparently don't like the smell of the Bradford pear tree. I think it's sweet, maybe bittersweet, and maybe it is a little bit too intense if you shove your face right into it. But I do enjoy that smell. And I think it's really easy to live in the moment when breathing that fresh spring air. My plants sitting on my balcony are coming out of their dormancy, turning their stressed winter colors into greens, and the warm sun rays are calling us to our own reawakening. I've been thinking quite a bit about that service that Tinka read for us last week about the Unitarian roots of our faith. And I certainly believe that Jesus was a very outstanding Jew. I also think he would have wanted me to take personal responsibility for my own shortcomings and my own sins. The story of Jesus' suffering, to me, is a reminder that life on earth, that my life and your life, is a miracle, and that we have the freedom to live it, a freedom to follow our heart and become the best person that we can be. And when we can live with pride in who we are and with humility for who we could be, then we can explore that miracle of life, knowing that we may occasionally stumble, but we will always rise again and make ourselves even more perfect. For me, freedom from sin is about the freedom to be who you want to be. Because it's easy to say, follow your dreams, or that you deserve to get what you want, so long as you aren't hurting anybody. And I think this is sound advice that people all sort of agree upon, but I think there are a few who aren't, and I think there are a few people who don't feel that they aren't already following their dreams. But the problem is that it's hard. It's hard to just follow your dreams. This is not easy advice to actually internalize and follow. And it's hard because sometimes you don't even know what it is that you really want. And that realization and realizing that you're not getting what it is you really want is sometimes not enough to set you free from that pattern that you found yourself in. It's not easy to realize that is both to acknowledge and to make real that which we want our life to be. Every single moment that we have is precious because we are the sum of our experiences and our feelings and our reactions. Every year is the sum of the current moment that we are living right now. And what we do and what we make today is something that we need to be able to look back on with pride. Even though those moments long ago and forgotten still make us who we are. When I look at, for instance, the art that I made as a child, even though I'm not interested in making clay sculptures anymore, those times when I did that still surely shaped who I am today. And those memories and those moments, that even those that are not worth remembering, will still define who we are. And that is why it is so important to constantly follow our dreams and to be who we want to be. And that is why I think it is worth asking ourselves, what is it that keeps us from being who we are and becoming who we want to be in our hearts? Now, sometimes we know what we want, at least kind of, but maybe not exactly. And let me give you an example from my life. When I was first old enough to cook all my own food, I would occasionally make myself some scrambled eggs, because as a kid, we'd have it as my dad would make it for occasionally. And when I was at college, they, of course, had the giant vat of powdered scrambled eggs that had little bits in it, and that was serviceable enough, at least for a college student. And so I'd scramble up some eggs, throw them in a bowl. But to be honest, by the time I was done eating those eggs, I would pretty much find myself forcing them down my throat. It was really not a quite pleasing experience by the time I was done eating them. And yet I kept making them. It was a cycle. This went on for years. I would scramble some eggs, kind of hate it, and then a few weeks later, repeat the process. Until after a few years of this, I decided that I was going to try to soft scramble them, just a slightly different way of cooking it. And when I had made it, it was so good that I genuinely couldn't believe it. And I'd made 2 eggs, and I immediately made 2 more and ate them right there. And it was a shock and a revelation. It's not just that I couldn't believe how amazing the eggs tasted. It was also, I couldn't believe that for so many years, I had been making my eggs the wrong way. Why did I keep doing this to myself? And why had I kept doing it for all those years? Was there some part of me that knew there was something in there that I wanted, something that I really did like? And indeed now, making those eggs is one of my favorite breakfasts to make. But maybe I was making them not because I was compelled to have those eggs, but because I felt like I should want it. But I also felt that there was something in there that wasn't quite right with how I felt, even though there was a little spark in there that was what I was after. Something in there made me want to suffer through eating those eggs. And that's a little bit strange, isn't it? To want to suffer. Now, when Buddhists, of course, insist that life is suffering, this is not a call to say that we should seek out suffering, but rather it's a call to accept its inevitability, that when we find ourselves confronted with suffering, that we should face that suffering head on, because that is what will make us better people. And perhaps this is something that many people have experienced in cases of heartbreak or the death of a loved one, where we avoid the pain of that loss. We avoid that experience, maybe through drugs or alcohol, or maybe we avoid it emotionally by distracting ourselves with work or by inventing stressors for us to put our energy into. But sometimes we will punish ourselves because we feel that we deserve it. And maybe when we recognize that when we confront our true pain in a healthy way, that we can be forced through that unpleasant experience, and that is what is ultimately for our benefit. This is a growth process which arises when there's a tension between who we feel that we are and who we want to be. we need to, and I find at least that I need to be conscious of how I want to act and be aware and mindful in that moment and reflective on the past. In my experience in music, certainly, is that a singer's pitch will waver out of tune the moment they stop thinking about their intonation. And it is important to have a balance of a constant but not distracting mindfulness, which is really only accomplished after years of discipline, of being able to not burden yourself with the stress of who you are not yet, but also being able to motivate yourself. And I find that I occasionally have to consciously focus myself on the kind of person that I really want to be, whether that's to be gentle, commanding, respectful, stern or passionate, relaxed, driven, kind, loving, empathetic, because I can only be those things if I feel them and live them in every moment. Our lives, of course, we live them for ourselves, but we as social creatures, we derive our meaning from our relationship with others, from participating in a world community, from having a place in an interdependent web of life. And I want to be seen in a certain way, and I want to play a certain role in that big social dance which we are all doing with each other. And this is what our identity is. My identity as a scientist, as a musician, as a UU, but also as a white man, as an American. These are things that are easy for me to be because I was shown how to be, and I was taught specific expectations for those roles. And when I copied what I saw, I was encouraged. But and I never had to seriously question what kind of person I was on the inside and who I wanted to be. But to be honest, I can't even tell what kind of eggs I like, so I don't know how I'm supposed to be trusted to know what I should really feel about my sexuality or about my gender identity, and about what I'm really into in those respects. Those seem like much more serious questions to answer than what kind of eggs I prefer to have for breakfast. And there are serious external and systematic barriers, systematic systems of oppression that are designed on having an outgroup who are less worthy of having a certain kind of life. People who will say, no, if you want to be trans, you don't get to play sports with your peers. No, you don't get to use the bathroom without your genitals being checked. No, you don't get to hide in safety during school shooter drills. And those people want to identify with how they feel in their heart. And they certainly also don't want to be ostracized, and not to the point where their life's very safety is at risk. And for those that hate trans people, this is very convenient for them. They don't really care why you don't want to be trans, as long as you have internalized that desire, whether it's because of what you really feel or because of their external pressures. And those external pressures can easily become internalized barriers. Those imposing those pressures would certainly like to convince you that it's only your own choice. And there are really two questions that we have to ask ourselves when it comes to who we are. Who is that person that I want to be? And am I that person? It's very hard to look in the mirror and see that you are not the kind of person that you want to be. What do you do when you find that who you want to be in your community and the kind of person that you want to be for the world doesn't match how you've actually been behaving? Who is it that we want to be? Do we want to be the one who always has a funny joke, the one who will always listen to your stories? Do we want to be the person that calls out injustice, the kind of person who stands up for what they believe in, the kind of person that you can trust not to judge you, who will accept you and love you for who you are? We are taught that what we want or need to do in this moment, we are caught up often in what we want in just this moment. and who we are as a person as a whole can get lost. We can value kindness and gentleness and compassion, but only if we can really practice it and really be aware of it in each moment can we accomplish that. Now, you've heard that one before, practice what you preach. But what I mean by that is that it means to reaffirm our values, not just to other people, but to ourselves. It is our righteous duty to go on that journey of spiritual truth, to discover what we really believe in. And then we must keep those convictions with us as we journey, not as a burdensome weight of shame, but as gentle reminders that we are always journeying to be a more complete wholeness, towards a more complete and wholeness, to being more complete individuals. And when we embrace our faults, when we truly recognize that we don't like what we don't like about ourselves, that is painful. It's painful to look back and realize that we have made mistakes and that perhaps we did not live up to our own standards. It's painful to look at our life's journey and find that that even though it felt like at every moment we were following the path that we were supposed to be on, we look up around and find that we're nowhere near where we wanted to be. And I've always found it difficult to really imagine the kind of lifestyle that I want, even before I've experienced it. Even see what seems like the most basic aspects of how you want to live your life, I find very difficult to really wrap my head around until I've experienced them firsthand. I remember being very confused in high school by my parents' questions about how I wanted to live as a young adult, about if I wanted to go to a big university or a small college in a big city or a more rural town on the coast or the Midwest. These were some questions that I could not possibly answer. And for instance, now I know that I very much value being able to have a garden and plants that I can take care of, but I don't know how I'm supposed to know that until I've lived it myself. I have felt at times that there was an effortlessness to how I lived my life. When I knew my place in the world and I knew that that was where I wanted to be. When we're doing what we want, living the lifestyle that we want to live, then the day-to-day activities flow easily, and our motivation comes as easily as floating downstream with the currents. And I think most people can sympathize, though, with a time when each day feels like a battle that needs to be defeated. That motivation to live a certain way, to be in a certain world that gets us through the day and gets us through the year. Having that motivation to me feels a bit like when I'm tired and need to try to stay awake versus the effortlessness of just being awake. When you have to force yourself to get through your job or your work, or when it just flows naturally. For instance, at my job, I found it almost impossible to do my work until I switched into the right research project. And then suddenly it was easy for me to get lost in hours of work rather than needing to drag myself through every minute of it. We need to work hard to make our dreams a reality, but we end up needing to work much harder, unnecessarily hard, I would say, when our work doesn't align with what we need. What exactly is it that motivates us to live that certain way, to have a certain vision of the world? What motivates us to want to accomplish things, to recognize that what we want to do as a part of that world community? I believe in a world of peace and compassion and acceptance, and a world where each person gets to walk the full journey of life. I believe that we each deserve to speak for ourselves, to hear and be heard, and that when we speak openly from the heart, then we no longer need to second guess ourselves. When each of us feels truly and equally represented, then we can each seek what we want instead of having to guess at what other people think that we want and what other people want us to be. we cannot each bear the responsibility of speaking for everyone. We each can only speak for ourselves. And so we must be true to ourselves. I believe in a world where every person has access to their full potential, where every person can contribute in a way that one human can be expected to, where we can play the role that we want. For this is our God-given right, to be challenged and to be accepted, to hear the stories of the world and to share our own, and to greet each day and each moment with joy. When we live with pride in who we are, with who we are journeying towards becoming, then we are able to work together and to bring a new and beautiful season. And I want to thank each and every one of you in my community for being exactly who you are and for bringing your light into this world. Thank you. Namaste. Blessed be. Amen.
Thank you, Alec. That was great. Our closing hymn is number 354 in the great hymnal, We Laugh, We Cry. Please feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you, but again, please only with a mask on. Please stand in body and spirit and join us in singing hymn number 354, We Laugh and Cry.
We laugh, we cry, we live, we die. We dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found our need to be together. We have our hearts to give, we have our thoughts to receive, and we believe that sharing is an answer. A child is born among us and we feel a special glow. We see time's endless journey as we watch the baby grow. We thrill to hear imagination freely running wild, but dedicate our minds and hearts to the spirit of this child. And we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found our time to be together. And with the grace of age, we share the wonder of youth, and we believe that growing is an answer. Our lives are full of wonder, and our time is very brief. The death of one among us fills us all with pain and grief. But as we live, so shall we die, and when our lives are done, the memories we shared with friends, they will linger on, and we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a place to be together. We have the right to grow, we have the gift to believe that peace within a living is an answer. We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. We seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here to make sense of what we find. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found our joy being together. And in ourselves
May you know fully and deeply the blessings of each of your heart's seasons, the inward turning of winter, springtime's lush renewal, the effortless, steady growth of summer, and autumn's rich harvests. May your passage from season to season be blessed, eased by hands to hold, and by the light of love to guide you on. Namaste, amen, and blessed be. Thank you, Alec, for sharing your valuable time and insights with us this morning. It is sincerely appreciated, and we look forward to hearing from you again. For those of you who would like to stay in the sanctuary for 10 to 15 minutes to share some discussion or observations from the service, please remain in the sanctuary or online if you're on Zoom. Please be aware that these comments will be posted online. For the rest of you, you're now welcome to adjourn to the parish hall. Would anyone like to come up and share your thoughts? If there's anyone online, use the Zoom raise your hand function to let us know.
I very much enjoyed Alex's talk because it reminded me of the complexity of my thinking back when I was young. I could probably go on into sort of a Seinfeld episode because now my thoughts are off. And is the body still going to work? And I'm happy whenever I don't have to go to now the dentist, in addition to the heart doctor, in addition to, the dermatologist, etc. Anyway, but I did want to mention one time when I came close to what Alex was talking about. I was in San Francisco and my parents' friends, all liberal, were kind of watching over me. I was basically wandering around, not knowing what to do. And I was filled with emotional sorrows and various feelings that I think youth are plagued by. I was wondering, for example, when I would go downtown to buy a pair of socks, if somebody said something to me that seemed a little bit odd or strange or unwelcoming, I would feel such a sorrow that I would immediately go back home. The result was that I pulled out a piece of paper and started writing down my thoughts that I would gather when I would lie back first thing in the morning, thinking of what I wanted to do without any tension, tensions I usually felt the rest of the day. And I would write down these things, and then I began following them. There were quite things like bicycle in the park. And I was near the Golden Gate Park, so I started doing that. And then go buy socks. So when someone would give me a bad time, I would still buy those socks because it was on my list. I found this list really was pushing me further and further into doing things. The best thing that I did was I went hang gliding, and I wrote things like, I'm afraid, but I want to go. And so I would say, therefore, I must go to the meeting, and actually did go hang gliding for one afternoon. I was told not to look at these rose bushes, because when you're hang gliding, if you look at something and you're learning, you fly right into it. And of course I did. I flew into the rose bush. And I was so fearful, even though I wanted to write down, go for my second, because I had another free afternoon for the $50 I'd paid. I was so afraid of the rose bush that I broke what I was trying to write down. And I said, I'm not going to do it. I'm afraid. And then I forget, some personality in LA, movie celebrity killed himself, and my mom sent my dad to come and gather me and took me back from my experiences and my experiments in the Bay. But writing those things down, those commandments, and then going out and doing them was probably the most exciting time of my life, although I was also continually feeling plagued with various feelings of uncertainty. Now my life is totally opposite all that. Which is the better? Hey, if I could go back and be 25 again, I'd do it. Thank you.
Yeah, that question always comes up. If you could be, young again, would you go back to that time? And yeah. So is there anyone else that either here or online that wants to share anything with us or ask Alec any questions or anything? Okay, well, so if there are no further comments, thank you for, oh, we do. Oh, come on up. Well, yes, no. Oh, okay.
Thank you for that sermon, Alec. I've done a thought experiment in the past. When you're feeling like you're not sure what it is you're looking for, it's try to write your own epitaph, which is like a funeral sermon for yourself, what you'd like to be said at your funeral. And then try to live up to that.
That's actually great. I've written a few epitaphs for relatives and realized that, you know, their lives were better than they thought they were, that they'd accomplished more of their goals than they realized. But doing what Grace just said would give you the ability to do that for yourself. Bill, did you want to come up?
Building a little bit off of what Walt had said there, I've always, as I'm, the calendar keeps insisting on handing me more time that seems to keep sticking to various parts of my body, my ribs notably. Something strikes me is that just as you age, wisdom is nice. You know, you want to accumulate some of it along the years, but what you want, I want to get back to some point where wisdom is not just pain avoidance, the pain avoidance of an old man that says, I do things like that again, but they hurt. A younger person has this tendency to like walk face first into ceiling fans. It's somewhere along the line, I want to hit that point if we are going to be doing rebirth like this celebration is for. I want to work on that balance where wisdom is not, I don't want wisdom to be just the talking of tired feet, but there's really got to be a way to be a little smarter than I was when I was very young. And I think I want to hit that point and just steer into moments like that as much as possible. And I don't know that I have to be 25 to do it, but if they're handing out being 25 again, I'll do it.
Anybody else? Oh, Linda?
All these tall people. It's an interesting direction, I think, that this is going in, because Walt got me thinking as well about reflection on my life, because like 30 years ago, I was just coming here. And overall, I have to honestly say, there are more things that I would choose to do that I did choose to do than I didn't. But I would have loved to have the knowledge that I have today. Because I might have either done them a little different, or there are some things that I would definitely have taken a different path. So I can say overall, a reflection of what I've done in my life, that I do feel good about it, but
Yeah, if we could only knew then what we know now. A question comes up like, is there anything that you regret having done? And it's like, for me, it's more the things I regret that I didn't do because I was afraid or things, and then realizing now that there was nothing to be afraid of and I should have done them. But anyway, anybody else want to come up and, Bill?
C.S. Lewis quote. And C.S. Lewis had one of the books he wrote is a piece called The Screwtape Letters. We looked at it a lot when I was back when I was an Episcopalian. And basically, at one point, this devil, this tempter, which is frankly one of the crappier jobs in hell, but you are where you are. And this devil is sitting here going, there are these souls over here, your Torquemadas, your real historical vicious people. They're just only a little bit less evil than we are. So when we go to eat their souls, which will eventually regenerate, there's a burn to it, like good spicy food. these guys over here, their sins are a little like macaroni with a light flavor packet. They're not. They had to be torqued around to being just rotten enough not to make it to the other place. And in that case, it was sins of omission, the blandness, the not stepping out and looking for your fellow man in the little ways that you could actually do. And, it got to the point where, I had looked at that thing when I was younger, and I didn't always agree with the screw tape letters, of course, but it was a challenge to debate them to debate that book properly. And I always thought that sins of omission thing, I really don't have the energy to be a decent torquemada, and my toolbox is just missing. I can't pull off the stuff I might have. But the sins of omission, the blandness, was always the one that said was terrifying to me, because it's like, you mean I'm going to be bland, cowardly, not do the things I ought to have done, even the little things, and that's going to take me out of being true with the universe, and I'm not even going to get any cool cash prizes or coupons for it. What the heck?
Any more thoughts from anyone? Okay, well.
Sorry, I'll be brief. I once had the opportunity to start working at Jet Propulsion Lab, but because I'd have to give up my retirement package that I'd put together when I was in Boise, Idaho, testing cow blood, and I transferred down and was testing cow blood here in San Bernardino. Offered a chance to go to JPL. Instead of making about $10,000 or $12,000, I could make $35,000 to $40,000. I looked at that number and I thought, it looks like a fantasy. But when I found out that I couldn't keep my retirement, I chose to not work at JPL. And eventually I went to work for soil physics research, which was a wonderful place in itself. And it had it had the retirement package that I wanted to keep. The moral in all this, sometimes I think, which should I have picked? Some days I'll go, I should have gone to JPL, of course. And others, it was like, well, I like the money that I have now from my retirement program. The overall message, I think, from all this is, when in doubt, continue living in a place of such wealth and opportunity as Southern California. And regardless of what choice you make as you kind of tap different choices at random, you'll still come out great.
I guess the ultimate test, though, is if you're happy now, you made the right choice. Okay, anybody else? And if not, anybody online, Adam? Then please join us in the Parish Hall for further fellowship. And happy Easter, everyone.